Native economic development fuels not only tribal communities, but often the regional economies around them as well. While there are many successes, there are also barriers. Each and every single member of Congress has an obligation to uphold our federal trust responsibility to tribal nations.
When you take in the consideration that we're on marginal lands and we're a fixed population, we don't tend to move when things get bad, when the economy goes bad. And that means our unemployment rate is a lot higher, and also it means that we don't really have the tax base that suffers greater when the economy goes down, because we're not relying on tax revenue, we rely on economic development.
Many tribes serve as the largest employer within the region where they are located. Our tribal enterprises employ hundreds of tribal members and non-tribal individuals from the surrounding communities. The Fort Mojave Indian Tribe has developed renewable energy-related business opportunities as a means to promote self-sufficiency and to diversify our economy.
The Ho-Chunk Nation is the largest employer in Sauk and Jackson counties. The nation underwent some challenges during the COVID-19 pandemic, including the closing of our gaming facilities. This was both a challenge for our government's programs and services, but also for an estimated $102 million annual payroll.
And in Indian country, Native children have been persistently among the worst off. About 40% of our Native children grow up in persistent poverty conditions. And those conditions have a long-lasting intergenerational impact. The children are the basis of not just our future, but a reflection of who we are as a society and a community. During the time when we had the child tax credit, we alleviated child poverty. We cut it in half or more.
Another issue I hear about is making sure that money appropriated by Congress is transparently distributed to Native Americans and not caught up in federal and state bureaucracies across our country.
Funding administered by the tribal government is more effective than funding passed down to the state government in grants. Through self-governance, tribal nations are delivering programs and services in an efficient and effective manner that meets the unique needs of our tribal communities. It has given our tribal government command over our resources and allows us to build greater internal capacity at the local level.
Other governments seem to think that it's their right to come in and take our revenue. We cannot have economic development sustained if other people are coming in and taking those revenues.
Let's incentivize building on our reservations. Let's encourage companies to build their manufacturing plants or whatever it may be on those places. As was mentioned earlier, we as tribal governments, we've been put in many places that are not really great for business. A lot of tribes don't have the ability to create the infrastructure to even bring business into their community. When we see jobs leaving our country, going to Mexico or somewhere else, why not call up a tribe? Why not find out if we can help out in that process and keep those jobs in our borders?
What more could we be doing on the committee and generally speaking to address the lack of capital in these communities?
The banks will feel comfortable if they're going in on these projects and everything with other capital. So just providing that is going to be important. But just like the World Bank, they don't just give a country this capital and expect them to do miracles and work these things out. There's infrastructure money. There is the idea that you get technical assistance with that money. And that's what we need to do.
An issue that I have found deeply troubling for some time is the disproportionately large number of missing and murdered Indigenous people, or MMIP, cases across the country. Have any of you experienced that or been intimately involved in any of these cases?
This is a multi-jurisdictional issue, federal, tribal, and state. And so there really needs to be delving into how do we encourage more cooperation, data sharing, and resources.
Tribes are sovereign and maintain a government-to-government relationship with the federal government. And under the United States Constitution, the federal government has a trust obligation to Native people. And unfortunately, the U.S. government has too often failed to recognize tribal sovereignty and to meet its trust obligations to Native people And those failures resonate today.